Here's a quick idea to make transfers that can wrap onto 3D objects. I'm using Blender's UV Unwrap to create the pattern, a bit like a dressmaking pattern. I've marked the seams to create as little distortion as possible when it's folded around the curved surface. The egg shape is the target that I'm using to bake a projection from the 3D models inside it. Here I've got an egg shape, which is a subdivided cube, and a knot shape from a slightly larger subdivided cube. I've made some textured materials. For baking, you need to use cycles rendering and set the background to transparent in film settings and set the target image as an RGB alpha. The target image should be selected in the outer egg material, and you need to select the objects in order, so you select the objects to render from first, and the last one should be the target object. Once the image is rendered, save it as a PNG or other image type with an alpha channel. Then open GIMP or Photoshop or whatever. Make a white A4 at 300 dots per inch and bring your rendered image as a new layer. You'll need to adjust the size to fit your egg. There's obviously lots of space which you should try to fill with other pictures and so on that you can use to transfer, as the transfer paper is very expensive. Here's my second egg. It's outline fishes swimming through seaweed. This is the rendered image from a previous run, but I'll disconnect the node to stop Blender complaining about circular references. After rendering the image onto the outside egg, open the UV editor panel and check the location of the top vertex here, 0.235 and 0.959, with the bottom vertex, 0.63, 0.462. Using Pythagoras, that's a diagonal distance of 0.547. On my egg, that's 3 inches or 900 pixels at the 300 dots per inch resolution we're going to use for printing. As the UV map is 1 unit high and 1 unit wide, that translates to 900 divided by 0.547, which equals 1646. So that's the dimension to use when you resize the image after importing to GIMP. However, I strongly recommend doing some quick test prints on normal paper and trying cutting them out and then trying wrapping them round for size, then proratering them to get them as close as possible to fit the egg. I also changed the diameter of my Blender egg as the first transfers overlap too much around the fattest part. For the actual printing, I found the friction between the transfer paper and normal paper or against the bottom of the feeder tray was so high that it either dragged the other paper through and printed onto that, or the printer just couldn't pull it through, so I wasted 2 sheets of expensive paper. The only solution I found was to put a second sheet of the transfer paper underneath the one that I was drawing out of the tray, and that worked okay. If you have a manual feeder on your printer, that might be the best way to do it. As you can see on the first attempt, it's really difficult to stick the transfer on in one piece and wet it to remove the paper evenly. I found it was much better to stick one part on at a time, then wet it using a paintbrush with just a small amount of water. It doesn't need much really for it to come loose. And then you can gradually get each strip in position and gently press it onto the egg. And if water goes where the next strip's going to land, dry that with a brush or a tissue so the transfer sticks onto the egg nicely. Once the whole thing's dry, you can add more transfers over the top using all the little designs you added to fill in the space on your transfer paper.